of all these guys that we've talked about, who do you think is the most MLB ready?
Man, you're putting me on the spot here.
So in case you didn't know, the Cubs have 8 players on the top 100 MLB prospect list, and 7 of them are position players. And guess what? Rachel Folden, who is a minor league hitting coach for the Cubs, has a really good relationship with all 7 of those guys. So I reached out to her on Instagram. I said, hey, would you be down for talking about those guys and maybe what they're good at, what they need to work on, and what their projections are? And she was like, yeah, absolutely. So we talk about that. We also get started in this interview with the progression of females in this sport, because obviously there has been a big uptick in that in the last few years. And it just didn't feel right to not ask about that with Rachel going into her, I believe, 6th year now as a Cubs hitting coach in the minor league. She was hired in 2019, right before COVID hit. So we're going to talk about that. Also, I want to make sure you know, starting tomorrow, I'm doing breakdowns of the 2016 Game 7 World Series. It's going to be all 10 innings. Each video is going to have its each individual breakdown of just things that I rewatched this and I'm like, wow, I forgot about that. Or, hey, I didn't even see that the first time. And so it was really fun to rewatch that. And I'm going to go inning by inning for you. 10 days in a row, you're going to see those breakdowns. So make sure you go check that out. Starting as we're going into kind of, the slow season with the holidays and everything, the news doesn't get as plentiful. Yes, we have the winter meetings coming up, but aside from that, not a whole lot going on. So let's get to it right now with Rachel Folden, though, and let's hear everything from projections about all these minor league hitters. You got hired by the Cubs in 2019, right before COVID hit, and I just want to know, from the scope of females in the sport, what has changed in the time that you've seen for the progression of baseball? Just what did it feel like coming on as a coach in 2019, and what does it feel like to be a coach now here in 2024?
I mean, I've learned a lot in the last 5 years. To the female perspective part of your question, it's been really amazing to see the growth of females in our sport.
That's good.
And, I remember when I got hired, I thought I was going to be the only one. And there had been other women in baseball in different capacities. And when I found out that Rachel Balkovec and I were getting hired on the same day, I remember how relieved I felt because I didn't have to just be by myself. And she had already worked in baseball for so many years that it was just like I could lean on somebody for advice of who's been in the industry already. So to see the growth has been awesome. It's led me to some incredible friendships. And, it's also, you asked from 2019 to now, what's changed? I think teams are more willing to obviously take a chance on a female coach the same way they would taking a chance on a young male coach that maybe just wants to break into baseball. And I think now we're just being held accountable for the standard of work that we do, which I think is all we've asked for. So I think that's where we're seeing the game go. Is it's not really a token as far as people hiring. I think it might have started to go in that direction, but I think now we're just being held accountable to the work that we do, and that's really all we want.
I didn't realize you and Rachel were hired on the same day. That's wild.
Yeah.
So really quick, you just said something there that just out of curiosity, like, was there maybe in 2020 when you started working with some of the guys, whether it was another coach or a player, that just like kind of guard up because of you being a female, that like just through some time they started to realize like, hey, she knows her stuff, and like guards went down?
Yeah, there was not on the players. The players have never cared. The players just
Oh,
want to
nice.
know that you can help make them better. And I've really never struggled to get over that hump, the gender hump with players. I will say with when I first got hired, there was a couple just you could just tell that I was entering a space where women had never been before. And
Sure.
so there was reluctancy to maybe use a curse word or maybe to talk in a certain way. And pretty much it just kind of faded out over time. But it is just a realistic thing. It's when I walk into baseball spaces that are not the Cubs, because the Cubs know me now. So it's completely like I'm just held to the standard of the work I do now. And so, but if I walk into another place with baseball people, it's just the nature of the business. We kind of have to reintroduce ourselves and prove again that we know a little bit and that we're not, just going to make everybody uncomfortable. So once that goes away though, and it usually happens pretty quickly, then it just becomes like anything else.
Well, hey, let's get into the fun stuff. We're going to talk about the Cubs' top 100 hitting prospects, top 100 in Major League Baseball, but really the top 7 in the organization. And I'm going to ask a few questions. What are they good at?
Sure.
What are the things that they're struggling with? And then, projecting into their first Major League season or a typical Major League season for them, what kind of player should we expect? So let's start down at the bottom. Number 8 overall and number 100 on the MLB top 100 list, Jefferson Rojas. Only 19 years old and already completed his 3rd pro season, which is just wild to think about from a 19-year-old. But what makes this guy so special from what you've seen?
Man, he's got this quiet competitiveness to him that is like the intangibles are off the charts with him. He really, really enjoys working. He really, really enjoys being challenged. He's just real quiet and he just goes about his business, but he's really, really fun to watch.
I saw him last year hit a bomb to right center field off of Cade Horton. I got it on video. I was actually able to post it on YouTube, and I was just like, did I just see that? Did I just see an 18-year-old take the Cubs' number 1 pitching prospect deep? And it was one of those swings. It was just effortless, and it just looked like he had been doing it for a while. I remember having to ask the person next to me, like, who was that? And when I found out it was 18-year-old Jefferson Rojas, that was wild. I mean,
yeah.
What do you think, though, after especially a tough season? I believe it was at South Bend this year. Yeah. Kind of a tough season up and down. What do you think he needs to work on right now to get to that next level?
I mean, hitting wise, it's really just, again, he's young, so he just needs to see more pitching at a higher level. I think whatever challenge is in front of him, he's going to respond to. So he just needs more exposure. And I think that's the case with most of our guys, is just the more pitching that they see, the better they get. I mean, there's a reason why it's really hard for guys to make the big leagues before they reach 1,500 professional at bats or 2,000 professional at bats. And there's a reason for that. It's just every level you get up, the pitching gets harder and it gets nastier, and he just needs to be exposed to that. But the thing that I like about him is when he gets jammed. He doesn't miss off the end of the bat. And I typically think that's better because you get more hits that way. And I think, it's not a timing issue for him all the time. So it's something that can be correctable pretty quickly, I think. And I think he's going to respond to whatever challenge you put in front of him, because I just trust the guy. He's competitive as hell. He's awesome.
You got Matt Shaw, you got James Triantos, Cam Smith. I'm sure I'm missing someone. Infield, Ben Cowles. You got all these infield prospects for the Cubs. Where does Jefferson Rojas, in terms of his ceiling of what he could potentially do, where does he land on your top Cubs infielders prospects list?
I mean, I'm not going to put him in order for you, but I can tell you he's just as promising, if not more promising, because he's a true shortstop. He can play shortstop. So I think that automatically puts him into a category that someone like Matt Shaw isn't in. So, Shaw's going to be in what it looks like is going to be a third baseman or a second baseman. And so I think when you have anybody who can play a true shortstop, I do think that obviously gives them more options and more ability to make the big leagues quicker and play multiple positions when they get there.
Cool. And guys, obviously Matt Shaw is our top prospect, so he will be the last one we talk about. Make sure you stay to the end. So at the end of the day, Rachel, 19-year-old Jefferson Rojas might be a completely different player than 22-year-old Jefferson Rojas, who actually cracks the major leagues. But if he were to, based on the talent that you've seen, where would you put him in a whole, let's just call it 150 game season for all these projections that we're doing? Let's just talk about slash line and what kind of player that we're going to get. What do you think the average is going to be? What do you think OBP? What do you think slugging is going to be? Just like what, and maybe how many home runs is this guy gonna put up from a projection standpoint?
That's a good question. I could see him being a 20 homer guy. I could see him getting on base a lot because he takes a really good at bat. He takes a really mature at bat for his age too, which is amazing. Batting average, slugging. He's the one player that I haven't had a chance to coach for a full season. Okay. So he's probably the one on your list that I have the least amount of experience with. But I could see him being a 20 homer guy in Wrigley playing shortstop in the big leagues for sure.
Okay, we got basically one of those right now, so let's do it. All right. Cam Smith, number 7 overall, number 7 in the Cubs organization, number 73 overall. And the first thing that just stands out to me is just the raw power. It was 5 games in a row, I believe, that he had a home run, and just the sheer size of the guy. I mean, this guy, even though he's number 7, has just climbed his way up. And I think I speak for most Cubs fans when I say this might be Matt Shaw 2.0 in terms of how quickly he climbs in the ranks. But what do you see? What's so special about Cam in the limited time that you've had with him?
I mean, the power's real. The athleticism is real. I mean, this is a big dude who moves really fast, and he plays the game really hard. And I mean, his ability to adjust to breaking balls at, his first season in pro ball, because when he came to me in Double A, his ability to adjust to breaking balls, and we in the Southern League faced some really, really good pitching, and his ability to do that really stood out to me this year. And there was a ball he hit in Birmingham that was like 111 down the line, and it was like a slider that he was kind of like butt sticking out on, just kind of flipped it out there and hit it 111 down the line. And I was like, that's some pretty special stuff. So watching him, everything that you guys see, we're really, really excited about. And nicest guy in the world, like the absolute nicest guy in the world. He's a good dude.
So it was really limited for his time in Tennessee. 5 games? I'm looking at the stats right now. Didn't hit any home runs, had a couple triples, ironically, but no doubles. Did you even get a chance to really see the power on display with the limited amount of time that you actually had with him?
Yeah, I threw MVP every day. Yeah. So saw a lot of pop. I mean, it really is real. I do think that as he gets more at bats underneath him, he'll start, making better swing decisions. There's a little bit of chase in there right now, which is to be expected. But for the most part, I mean, the power's there. He doesn't swing and miss very much when the ball's in the zone. And that's something you really like to see from someone who hits the ball as hard as he does.
Now, would you say chase is the thing that he has to work on, or is there other parts of his game that he needs to work on at the moment?
I would say, like offensively, yeah, I would say that's probably where he could probably make the biggest gains at this point in his career, for sure.
What about defensively? We haven't heard a whole lot about the defense.
I have a very limited sample, sure. And I'm also not a defensive coach, sure. So I don't want to speak out of my depth, but everything I saw was pretty encouraging. The arm strength is there. He moves well. He's an athlete. He's a really, really good athlete for his size, for sure.
All right. Well, again, very limited time with him, but I mean, are we looking at the next Chris Bryant, or what are we looking at here at third base?
You know what? To say someone's going to go and be a rookie of the year and an MVP and a World Series champion, I would love that as much as you would. Yeah. But I think could very realistically be like a 30 home run guy in the big leagues. Like, he's got that much pop, especially like assuming he plays for the Cubs in the big leagues, which I hope he does. At Wrigley, being a right-handed hitter, obviously it's a little more favorable than being a left-handed hitter playing in Wrigley. So we like that too. All
right, let's get into some of the familiar names now. And Kevin Alcantara, number 6 over in the organization for the Cubs, and number 67 overall. We keep hearing athleticism, but what do you see as being the major thing that he's special in?
Kevin is, for someone who is 6'6" and hits the ball as hard as he does, his ability to those long levers, his ability to just move the ball forward and make contact is, I'm amazed. I love working with Kevin. I love him. I think he's awesome. I was there with him when he went 0 for 34 to start the season, and I'm sure it made everybody, panic a little bit, but he was steadily just one of the best hitters we had in Tennessee, and I had a loaded roster, as you know. So his ability to make contact is something special, man. It really is. He's very, very hitterish for someone who is that big, and it's very impressive. That's really hard to do.
So what do you see in a guy like that who goes 0 for 34 to start the season, and what he has to change to get back on track?
For him, it was really just getting back to the basics of his routine. Kevin, actually, so I I got to coach Kevin in rookie ball too, which is cool. And one of the things that I always liked about him is he likes to be challenged. So if you push a button on Kevin, it's go time. He's gonna try to like do whatever he can to beat you at whatever it is that you're doing. And so I think he got away from that a little bit and started getting a little comfortable. And he's really, really good when he's challenged, especially in the cage. So I think it was just getting him back to doing some drills that put him in a little bit more uncomfortable positions, excuse me.
Okay.
And I think that's really all he needed was just that reset. Because I mean, after that, I think I think he hit like 280 for us after that. And I think he ended the year hitting like 270, 275, somewhere around there. So like being a 280 hitter at 6'6" with that much pop, the ceilings, I would say of everybody on this list, he has the highest ceiling. And that is something you can't ignore when you watch him play.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I think he also in 23 kind of had the same thing. Like first half of the season, it got off to a little bit of a slow start. Second half, he really turned it on. Do you identify that being kind of the same issue? Do you know? Because I mean, I know he wasn't with you at the time, or at least I don't think he was. But what do you identify? That is that a concerning pattern? I guess.
I don't think so. I think I would love to see a statistic on this of a Latino player in our organization playing in South Bend in April and see what they hit. Going from they grow up in the Caribbean, right? They move their first taste of baseball in the United States is in Arizona. Then they go play in Myrtle Beach, and now they're playing in South Bend. This is I would like to know anybody that would hit when their hands they can't feel them for the first time in their whole life. I mean, you live there, like you be in April, it is not comfortable to be playing in the Midwest League. So I would be curious. I think that's more of what it was for him in 2023. And in 2024, it was just getting him back to being who he was. That's basically it. And it happened really fast. I mean, after he went 0 for 34, he was like the hottest hitter on the planet for like his next 34 at bats. So I don't really worry about him too much.
Okay. So he got his first taste of the major leagues this last year, got that over with in 24, 25. Let's assume again, not saying it's going to happen in 25, but let's just put that average 150 game season out there for Kevin Alcantara. What's he going to look like for fans?
It's going to be a matter of how he adjusts to big league pitching. Again, he's got some chase to his game as well. The in zone whiff is not a concern. It's mostly going to be a chase thing. So I would actually say if he could keep his swing rate down a little bit, and just not be so swing happy, because he's a hitter first and foremost, which is why he's really good. But I could see big league pitching picking that apart. So as long as he's a little bit more disciplined, if you're talking ceiling, I mean, this is a guy that could hit 280 with 28 to 30 home runs and like play a really, really good outfield for you as well. So like I'm telling you right now, the ceiling on him is as high as anybody on the list for sure.
It's just about finding him and guys like Owen Caissie the spot to actually get onto the major league roster, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's go to number 5, James Triantos. Now, all I keep hearing about with James is really the contact and the stolen base factor. So what can you tell us, either add to that or also tell us about that maybe we're not hearing about from his game?
Okay, so James is the best way I can describe him is he is a baseball player. Like he's for everybody, right? That's talking your father's favorite baseball player would look a lot like James Triantos, and your favorite baseball player would look like James Triantos. He's like always going to be front of the jersey covered in mud, right? Playing multiple positions, running all over the field, stealing every bag, taking every extra base, playing really hard. And he just finding a way to get things done. And I think what the biggest separator with him and why he's so good and why I think he'll be a big leaguer for a really long time is because he's obsessed with baseball. Like James Triantos knows more about baseball than I know about baseball. And it's funny because we talk about it all the time, and it's amazing how many times like he corrects me. And he's another guy that I coached in rookie ball. So I got him right after he got drafted. and then I had him again in AA. So like we have a really good working relationship, and it's hilarious when I'm talking about somebody and he's like, no, that's not what happened. This is what happened. Cause he just remembers he's like a vault. He's kind of a savant when it comes to baseball. So he's going to go as far at, like, we're talking ceilings. Tree will get as close to his ceiling as possible, more so than anybody else. Like it's just, and the athleticism is more than I think people give him credit for. I mean, when he was in rookie ball, I watched him in warmups just do a standing backflip just because somebody else did one, and he was like, "Oh, I could do that too," and so he did it too. And it's just like the athleticism's there. So I think, I mean, he's going to be a big leaguer for a really, really long time.
He keeps getting Nico comparisons. Would you say that's a good comparison?
I would hope so. I think the man, if he could play defense as good as Nico, which Nico's probably got him a little bit on the glove. I mean, Nico's a Gold Glove candidate, so like I would say to put Tree in that category would be a disservice to Nico. But I think the contact ability, the hit ability, Tree probably pulls the ball a little bit more than Nico. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, and how it projects into the big leagues. But that, if you just look at it, he probably pulls the baseball a little bit more than Nico does.
Okay. So would you say the projections from an offensive standpoint would be similar to Nico, or is there any part of Triantos' game that's a little bit different offensively? Just again, looking at that final stat line, what would you project compared to Nico?
I think his ability, he might hit more homers than Nico. I think that would be maybe. But I think just because he pulls the ball a little bit more, but I don't know. I don't know what his body's going to look like too when he gets up there. So that's a little bit harder too for as a projection. But defensively, I think if we could get him close to Nico, that would be nice. But I think Nico's going to have him there.
You brought up something interesting when you said you don't know what his body's going to look like. Is he working on something that's changing his physical form, or what? Where does that come from then?
No, don't read into that. It's just it's just one of those things that I would say about everybody. So I just happened to say it about him. Yeah.
Yeah. Just, and I'm assuming that just comes from a place of these guys are in their early 20s and bodies still developing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Makes sense. All right. Number 4, and everyone is super excited about Moises Ballesteros, back-to-back player of the years in the Cubs organization from a position standpoint. I mean, what can you say about this guy? And I've seen the swing. I've seen some raw video of the swing. It's fun to watch that swing just from from a video standpoint. What's it like in person?
It's pretty. You know, from the left side, just his ability to he will outsmart pitchers, which makes him, that's why he's good behind the plate too, is he's just really smart. And his ability to like pick up on patterns and pitch tips and things like that, he's really good at. And that allows him to do what he does best, which is just hit a lot of balls not on the ground. He just hits a lot of line drives and a lot of doubles, and he pops some homers too. I loved watching him hit with a big league ball in the fall league this year, because, you know, in Tennessee, we got, you know, the minor league ball and the big league ball is hotter, obviously. And so listening to it and watching him, you know, just watching the ball come off the bat was just really special. He's probably the best like pure hitter in our org, of just like straight out just hitterish ability. And the fun thing about him, this is something I love to tell everybody. I again had him in rookie ball and again in AA, and I have never ever had to coach him. I just had to make sure that the machines worked, and I had to make sure that he was in a BP group so I could throw to him if it was my day to throw, and that's it. And it was just, hey, me coming to him and saying, hey, what do you got on this guy? Or what do you have? What do you want to work on? And he'll tell me exactly how he wants to be coached. That I will tell you right now, he's another one that's just obsessed with baseball, and he's going to go as far as, you know, as long as he stays healthy, which don't read into that. I'm just saying, I would say that about anybody. He's perfectly healthy, but he's going to hit his way to a very, very successful and productive career.
So I'm going to ask maybe a tough question here, and it's the same one I want to ask for Owen Caissie. And all we hear about is, this guy can hit, this guy can hit, this guy can hit for both of them. The results, right? They're good. When you look at his overall numbers between both AA and AAA this year, 826 OPS, had 19 home runs. It's good numbers. The question I think most fans have is like, wow, like, with as much hype as there is, I would think I would see, 30 home runs in the minors or batting 350 or whatnot. Speak to that really quickly, just so that we can understand, like, do the results matter that much in the minors from what we see of what his ceiling could be compared to what the actual numbers are in the minors?
I think the numbers that he's really good at project to the big leagues. And I think what you're really asking is the homers question, which I think everybody asks about Owen. We're talking about very, very young players. And these guys don't hit their grown man bodies until like 25, 26. So it's like, I think people want to see 30 homers out of a 20-year-old. And it's like, I mean, I don't know many 20-year-olds that have completely hit their grown man body yet. So I think, I think the numbers that he is good at do project. Like him having a 800 plus OPS his entire career in the minors suggests that he's probably going to have an 800 OPS in the big leagues when he gets there. So like, I think those kinds of numbers do translate versus the homers. I think people just want to see homers in the minor leagues. And it's like, there's so many other ways that he's been absolutely dominating the minor leagues, and he's doing that. So
now, my question was on more so for Moises. Were you talking about Owen there?
Both of them.
Oh, okay, for both of them. Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Just want to make sure there. And I heard it put well from a college coach a few years back. It's the man muscles, right? The man muscles are a lot different than the teenage and early 20 muscles. So no, that makes a lot of sense. My last question about Moises is the defense. Everyone keeps on wondering, is he going to be able to sustain being a major league catcher? And a lot of people seem to want to just be pigeonholing him into a DH role. Well, guess what? Seiya Suzuki is a DH. I don't really see where you get any at bats there. So what do you see from the defense? Is it transferable to the majors right now?
Yeah, he can catch.
Yeah?
Yeah, he can catch.
Okay, leave it at that.
Yep.
All right.
It's not my domain, but I'll tell you right now, from being in the dugout, the dude can catch.
Okay. I like it. Arm? Does he have an arm?
Yeah, he can catch. I wouldn't say he could, it's not like he has anything that's like glaring deficiencies. The guy's a good catcher. I think if you watch and look at how much his body has changed, I think 99% of the reservations about Moises Ballesteros are simply just what we say by looking at him, because he's 5'9", and he's been somebody who's been a little bit on the bigger side for majority of them. Look at him now. The guy looks great, but if you just look at his ability, there's nothing to suggest that that's ever held him back in any way. So he can catch.
I love it. Number 2, Owen Caissie, overall 34th. Just had him on the show and felt like I was talking to a 30-year-old the entire time. I mean, he's just mature beyond his years from the small amount of time that I had with him. But sounds like, I mean, if you ask him to go out there in right field today in Wrigley, it sounds like he's ready to go. So I don't think confidence lacks in the guy. What do you see from just a tangible standpoint of your time with Owen Caissie?
He hits the ball hard, man.
Yeah,
and he has a swing that is by, we have an ungodly amount of measurables that we measure swings on, and he hits the most markers of what a good swing should be of anybody in our org. So the swing's going to play. It's going to play for a really long time because it's really low effort for him. So it's not violent. It's not something that where the bat speed's going to slow down a ton because as he gets older, just because it's so smooth and it's so efficient and it's so low effort for him. So I really, really think that he's like, as a hitter, like in our org, I think, like I said before, I think Kevin Alcantara has the highest ceiling as an overall player, but I think Owen probably has the highest ceiling as an overall hitter. And just because for his ability to hit the ball as hard as he does, especially on a windy day in Wrigley, he hits a lot of just like stingers, right? That'll just cut through the wind. He'll hit a ton of doubles. He'll hit a ton of home runs. Just the power potential is real on that one. It's special.
He told me that the one thing he wants to work on is the strikeout rate. Is that what you see being the main thing for him too?
Yeah, I think that's something that he's as well on his radar. I think that that's something that could take him from being somebody who's an all-star to being an everyday player. I do think he's an everyday big leaguer right now, and his ability to be an all-star is just going to be a matter of what he does, cutting down the strikeout rate a little bit, because what he does in between strikeouts is very special.
And it's encouraging to see that each level that he's gone to, it's either been about the same strikeout rate or lower, and it hasn't gone up. So
Yes.
I think you got to like that trend. So projections, just realized I forgot to ask about Moises. So let's go back to Moises.
Sure.
Let's see what your projections are there, and then we'll go to Owen.
I think Moises is probably going to be, he'll be a big league catcher who probably hits 15 to 20 homers. He's going to find his way on base a lot, and he's probably going to have a 800 plus OPS. And from the catcher position, hitting left-handed,
heck yeah,
we'll take that. We'll take that all day. Yeah,
100%. And then Owen.
Man, it's hard for me to tell with Owen, just because he's left-handed and obviously playing in Wrigley Field. But I don't think he's got 30, 35, 40 homer potential. He really does. And I think he's, like you said, he's just getting better year after year. The thing about him, so it's same thing as Tree, he's obsessed with baseball. So he, like the Mike Trout commercial where Mike Trout's in the shower and he's like brushing his teeth and he's watching baseball. And then it's like, Mike Trout's thinking about baseball. And then it's like that's those two guys. They're just obsessed with baseball. So he'll be fine. Whatever he has to do, he's going to figure out.
Now, not from a body type and athleticism standpoint, but do you have a hard time not thinking about Kyle Schwarber when you think about the projections for Owen Caissie?
I would take Schwarber. I think he's probably going to strike out less than Schwarber.
Okay.
I would say that, but I mean, he hit like 280, 270 last year in Iowa. Like, I mean, he's doing some things. Like, I think everybody in the world would be like, this guy is incredible if there were more homers. And I think I really do think personally, I think the homers that come later have more staying power in the big leagues. I think he's on that path of he's going to homer a lot in the big leagues. And I think he's learning how to do that as he goes through the minor leagues.
That's exciting. You heard it here, folks. Rachel Folden says guaranteed 40 home runs from Owen Caissie.
Did not say that, but all right. If it happens, I said it because he'd be the second one, right?
If it happens, there we go. We're gonna put that asterisk on it. All right. Yeah. Ending with the most exciting, and then I want to hear maybe one or two guys that we haven't talked about that you are excited about. Matt Shaw, number 1 over for the Cubs, number 22 overall, and just lighting up the Premier 12 right now.
Yeah.
That's been fun to see on highlights. So, I mean, I don't even know where to start with Matt Shaw, so I'm just going to give you the floor.
I was really impressed with him. He came in Double-A this year, and he kind of got off to, I wouldn't say a super slow start, but slow for his standards.
It was
noticeable. Yeah, and I think it was mostly noticeable because of the way that he just came out of the gates all cylinders last year in South Bend after the draft. And so, it was just an adjustment for him, and credit to him, man, he works. And I will tell you, there is a real aptitude there that I really like. He asks questions. He's very curious. And a lot of times he comes up with the idea all on his own. And it's just a matter of, okay, this is your idea. This is what you think you need to get better at. Let's come up with a way to help you. And he's really fun to coach in that regard because a lot of it comes from him. It's very player driven. He's very smart. He's obviously very talented, and just I mean, another guy that hits the ball really hard, and he kind of out hits his frame too, which is really cool. But like two strike hitting, his ability to just like, I think him and Triantos this year had a little competition for the who could get more hits through the 3-4 hole, because like when that's wide open a lot in baseball when they're holding a runner at first
Yeah.
base
Heck
and
yeah.
second baseman shifted over, it's just like an easy hit, and him and Tree would just be like hit it, and they'd look at each other like, oh, got another one. Like it was just something that he's willing to do that is very mature for a player in the minor leagues. So uh, there's a lot to like for sure.
So as you probably get reminded of all the time, especially from media like me, it's just the gap just seems to be so much bigger now from AAA to the majors than ever before. And you see guys like Miguel Amaya struggle this year. And the main thing that they got rid of to make him start being a professional hitter again was that leg kick. You see how dramatic the leg kick can be at times for Matt Shaw. Does that worry you at all from a standpoint of how that's going to project into the majors?
No. And the reason why is because the game will tell us if it needs to change. And the
Okay.
game hasn't told us that it needs to change yet. So he cuts it down with two strikes. If you watched his premier 12 at bats, the leg kick comes down with two strikes. So I'm not concerned because I know the guy. I know the man swinging the bat, and I will put my money on the man swinging the bat to figure it out. If I will tell you this, if it was ever a situation where that needed to change, he would do it and he would dominate it. So I'm not really worried about it. The game hasn't told him that it needs to change, so we don't worry about it.
Am I right that this is the guy that you would expect to go through the least amount of growing pains coming up to the majors, just based on the pure fundamentals of the swing and just how consistent it is, how level it is? Like, it just seems like this is a guy that would probably the strikeouts may not be as big of a thing as like an Owen Caissie coming up and getting in his head about strikeouts. Am I reading into that too much, or do you think that that's accurate?
I mean, it's hard to tell. Like you said before, the gap between the minor leagues and the big leagues is so large. It's probably as big as it's ever been. And I've never coached in the big leagues, so it's really hard to tell that. Again, like this is kind of just going by what we talked about before we started recording. Like I'm terrible at projections. I also like really love these guys, so I think they're all going to be good.
Yeah.
But I do think that, I mean, he's a big leaguer. I think he's a very productive big leaguer. And as far as like who's the closest or who's the most ready, I think we have probably like 4 or 5 guys that are knocking on the door right now, Shaw being one of them for sure.
All right. The big question for him, can he play third base?
I mean, he's gonna, again, he's going to do whatever you ask him to do. So if there is something that is keeping him from playing a position that we need him to play, if we present him with that information, he's going to figure it out. I trust the man. I'm telling you right now, it's a very unconventional brain, but I really really enjoy it, and he's really fun to talk to.
Well, I can tell you this. Anytime I see the highlights of him making a diving play at third, whether it's spring training, Premier 12, or down in the minors, I'm like, that looks good to me. I'll take it. What are we looking at from a stat line? What do you think an average 150 game season is going to be like for him?
Well, let's go. Best predictor of future success is past success. So he's probably going to hit 270, 280, somewhere around there. He's going to have, 800 plus OPS probably, because there's some real power there. It's funny because he's not very tall. He's a real short, compact dude, but he's strong as heck. And probably 20 to 30 home runs. If he hit more than 30, that would be amazing. But yeah, I think there's some real potential to like hit some balls really far, especially with a big league ball. And we saw that in Iowa. I think, what did he have, like 6, 7 home runs in Iowa when he got called up? So like there's some pop there that a lot of people are projecting, and it's real. It's definitely real. So
that's encouraging. I had not thought that 30 home runs from a guy like that was going to be even a thought, but Yeah. Okay. I'll take that.
I mean, so I'm looking at it right now. He hit 14 home runs in Tennessee without the big league ball in 300 at bats, and he hit 7 home runs in Iowa in 130 at bats.
That's
So if you,
21 right there.
it's 21, and what I say before, I think some
20 to 30.
guys. I mean, yeah. So maybe closer to 20, but still really good. Especially like if you could get that production coming from the infield, it's awesome.
Absolutely. Now the question is, who did I not mention that Rachel Folden is really excited about for that next step?
Oh boy. I mean, I think there's a lot to like with Ben Cowles. I know he just got here, but I think there's a lot of upside there. And I know he just got named to the 40 man, which congratulations to him. That's amazing. But, I think there's a lot to like there. It's a great kid, fun to work with. The swing is, again, he's hit 270, 280 for his entire minor league career. He runs really well and he plays a really good shortstop. So I think there's a lot to like there. He looks a lot like the fundamental shortstop that we've probably all grown up watching. He looks a lot like that guy. So I think there's a lot of upside there. And, we haven't really talked about him much. There's a lot. We have a loaded minor league system. I think Pedro Ramirez is really exciting at the lower levels. What Christian Hernandez did last year, turning his minor league career around, and kind of looking a lot like the kid that we thought he was going to look like when we brought him over from the Dominican. I think there's a lot to like there. There's some exciting players in our organization. I could talk. I mean, who do you want me? You can go on a roster. Tell me who you think, and I'll tell you what I think about them.
No, that's good enough right there. I'm excited to hear that. And I think the place I want to end it with is, of all these guys that we've talked about, excluding any sort of roster openings on the major league roster or injuries, just purely where they're at in their journey, who do you think is the most MLB ready of these guys, that if tomorrow they said, hey, you're getting called up, you think that they would be the most likely to be ready and successful right away?
Man, you're putting me on the spot here.
We won't hold you to it.
I think probably Owen. Maybe I would say probably Owen. Let's just go that way. He played a complete season in AAA, so I think he's probably the closest to being major league ready right now, just based on his trajectory. Let's just go with that.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
Yeah,
Rachel,
but
we'll see you again at spring training, and I appreciate your time. This has been a lot of fun. And you say you suck at projections, but you did a pretty good job.
Just everybody you listed today, just so you know, they're all big leaguers. So if anybody out there is wondering, they're all going to play in the big leagues because they're all really, really good players. Our farm system is very talented. We put in a lot of good work with them, and they're all going to be big leaguers. So once you get to the big leagues, man, the game just gets like exponentially harder. But I can tell you right now, they're all going to be big leaguers. You can hold me to that one.
I'm going to hold you to that one. Let's
Okay.
Let's do that. Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
And as promised, Rachel DM'd me after that interview, and she was like, inevitably, I forget about someone. And that person that she wanted to make sure we give a shout out to is Jonathan Long, number 28 on the Cubs top prospect list. And what she said to me was, dude is good, and all caps in good. And she says, simple swing that has easy pop, can get to every pitch. And she said, look at those AA stat lines from last year. And here it is in Tennessee. That's where Rachel is at, Tennessee AA Smokies. Jonathan Long had a 340 batting average, a 455 on base, and a 528 slugging percentage, which equated to 7 home runs and 9 doubles in 200 plate appearances. That's really good. And I asked her, I was like, why is no one talking about this guy? And, he was in the AFL this last year, and I know a few people started to kind of look him up and say, who is this guy? Because he was having a pretty decent AFL. But someone to look at, and someone that Rachel Folden is really high on. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him go up in the ranks. And as I'm actually saying that, I don't even know what position he is. So I'm looking at that right now, and he is a first baseman, outfielder, and third base. It's a pretty unique combination. So excited to see that. His estimated ETA is going to be 2026 according to MLB.com. So keep a lookout according to Rachel Folden. That's going to do it, guys. I'm going to put my arm on ice. We'll see you next time, Setup Nation.